the beginning of the end for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun.
A mighty sword!
Strike while the iron's hot.
For Camelot! For Avalon!
Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to the SPL Phase 3, Day 1. And I'm not going to count any of the days after this one because it's going to get way too hectic if we try to keep that up throughout the rest of the year. My name is Gormizer. Chelly's going to be on the desk with me. And, of course, I want to say and start off this phase by giving a shout-out to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor of the SPL this year. And, of course, I'm sure you've already seen what kind of new games you can get. Again, that changes every month. So I think today's the last day of September, right? So tomorrow there should be a whole slew of new games that you're going to be able to get if you are a Prime Gaming member. If you're not, you should go ahead and become one because you're going to get not only those free games that we just mentioned, again, that refresh every month, you're also going to get a free sub to your favorite Twitch channel, as well as tons of other perks that you're going to be able to find. You have to make sure that you're getting the most out of it by actually being a Prime Gaming member, and of course, making sure that you do those. There's a sub button down there. There's a crown up there. All of those are where you're going to find your things. Plus, all of that, you're going to get the game content as well, and free Amazon delivery, things like that. All of that and more. So once again, thank you to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor here of the SPL. Once again, my name's Gormizer. That's Trelly. And Trelly, again, this has been a wild, wild ride in the offseason. First off, it feels like it's been literal ages since we sat here.
No, we have not been sitting down here for quite some time. And also, if you guys at home, if you're not on Twitter and for some reason you missed the SPL waiting room, you're in for a rude awakening when you see all the roster changes that have been coming.
If you missed SPL waiting room, like, come on, man.
I mean, also, what are you doing?
That's like my thing.
That's like the
like,
one-stop shop for all SPL action. If
yeah,
you
as long as you ignore all the other
stuff.
things.
Exactly.
Like, especially here, this desk, which is going to be, I guess, technically another one-stop shop where we talk about SMITE Pro League stuff.
Oh, that's all we talk about up here.
I think we've done a pretty good job so far. As we know, production says that's definitely not true. I'm going to try to keep things a little more under wrap. Last weekend, of course, if you were watching, was the Leviathans Invitational. Got a little silly, I think is the best way to describe it. But Trelly, this phase, things are very important. Things are weighed down for a lot of these teams because now we're talking worlds, right? We're not just looking at where we are now. We're talking wins matter. Everything matters. Every set leads you to a specific position that leads you into et cetera, right? So, you've got your Phase 3 entirety that leads into the playoffs. And, of course, that's what you can see right there up at the top. The Phase 3 playoffs, top 4 of those qualify for Worlds immediately, right? And that's going to be seeding. Whoever wins, first seed, there you go, nailed it. Then some weeks in December where we're going to be getting some SCC, SOC teams to the group stages. One from Europe, one weekend that's Europe, one weekend that's North America. Then the teams that did not qualify from the Phase 3 playoffs and the teams that did qualify in those Road to Worlds for the SCC, SOC teams will play together the week before Worlds to find the last 4 that will join the original 4 from the Phase 3 playoffs at the SMITE World Championship in the esports arena in Arlington, Texas. That's fun to say, of which, I'm sorry to say now, you're not going to get tickets for because we sold out. Again, I'm excited for that one. I think everybody is. In person, Trelly, there's going to be a crowd.
There's going to be
I don't think I can stop being happy about it.
No, I can see that smile on your face, grinning from ear to ear. So you're telling me, looking at this world map, the excuses are gone, right? I mean, if your team is not up to standard, if you're not performing the way that you thought you were, there's no more excuses. This is Worlds time. Like,
no excuses anymore.
Yeah, this is everything. You got to leave it all on the map.
Yeah, I guess that's the best way to say it. You got to leave it all out there. A lot of fun. Again, there were a lot of roster changes that came into it today. We're going to be having a lot of fun because we are going to be watching some interesting matchups. First off, we do have at least one roster change that happened in this first set. The Leviathans taking on the Warriors. An exciting one to kick things off. Then the Titans taking on the Bolts a little bit later. For those of you who, again, if you missed Waiting Room, Leviathans, or I guess like you said, no Twitter. Leviathans, Haddix is playing in the solo instead of Hardcore. Hardcore is now on the Scarabs. Bolts, later today, going to be playing with Baskin in the solo lane. And the Titans, for those of you who are unaware or haven't caught up on this one just yet, still have layers. He's just not playing in studio. He's playing from home. So a lot of things that are different, a lot of things that are the same, but we'll see how the last 6 weeks and these last couple of patch cycles have affected the 4 teams that play today. Then tomorrow, Dragons and Scarabs. I'm really excited to see that one for a new look at the Scarabs, but also the Dragons are on a little bit of a win streak right now.
A little bit.
That I'm excited to keep watching. Kings, Valks, and then Sunday we'll have the typical triple header. So today, tomorrow, if you're watching this, you already know, today started at 1 p.m. Eastern, tomorrow 1 p.m. Eastern. Sunday will be the 11 a.m. It's the same cadence that we've been hitting all year, and I'm excited for this one. A lot of SBL, a lot of excitement for this weekend, Trelly. But we're starting off with the Leviathans and the Warriors. And this is a matchup that I'm really interested in, because if we plop, let's say in like week 6 of Phase 2, these two teams are right next to each other. Not something maybe you would have expected, honestly, from either. After Phase 1 performance from the Warriors, you expect them to be higher. Those guys are literal world champions, and for some reason they were sitting around in the 5th, 6th, 7th spot, like fighting essentially against the Scarabs and the Valkyries as to who was going to be where in that bottom 4. And has made things very interesting, I think, to see what this team has done. The Leviathans, though, have made some changes. They almost always, everyone talks about it when they get serious. This is the team that Worlds run, specifically any team Zapman's on, just seems to level up.
And that's what I think that's the main thing to focus on. There's 2 things at play here, besides the fact that Haddix is new, and we'll touch on that in a second. This is Phase 3, Worlds Leviathan, Zapman just spearheading this team. So this is where they turn out. This is where, as you said, there's no more excuses. If you're not performing up to standard, this is the time where you sort of have to. And number 2, it's 1 p.m. This isn't 11 a.m. at Leviathans where they were up grinding ranked all night. They got some good sleep. They slept in. They should be ready to perform.
They should be. That's always the key, right? Yeah, the timing. I think it was 11 a.m. Scarabs, no, it was the Leviathans, wasn't it? That was like 11 a.m. Leviathans and like 3 p.m. Leviathans are 2 drastically different teams that you would get to see. And hopefully we get some consistency out of there. But I think it is almost just impossible to not talk about Haddix, right, in this kind of position, to talk about the solo lane matchup in general, because you've got Nika on one side, who has been very consistent, very clean, has literally carried the Warriors through games sometimes. And Haddix, who is really consistent, really clean, has literally carried the Bolts through games sometimes. I mean, like, you've got 2 really great solo laners. One kind of an established, secure player in Nika. One who last year, new hotness. This year, really fresh, really inspiring play. And he's just been good. I mean, there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, Haddix has been incredibly consistent. We talked about it on the waiting room, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but the man's hungry. I mean, he wants an SPL. He wants a World Championship. That's the run he's going for. He felt like he was more confident moving forward on the Levi's. So, I mean, they should have been putting in the work at this point. When you take a solo laner who already has been performing at this level, been incredibly consistent, even, as you said, when the Bolts are losing, Haddix still was looking super solid. I imagine, as long as they can make those corrections, and as a 5v5 squad, the Leviathans just really let Haddix mesh in, because he's played with a lot of these guys before, back on the Sanguine days. It should just be, a picture-perfect roster change if they're able to really mesh together. But, Nika's no slouch, as you said.
Yes. This is one that, again, what we're going to see today is not just, Haddix jumping into this team. Arguably, you would think maybe solo kind of easier. I think there's a lot of players, first off, that are just really good at it. But impact in the early game isn't crazy high. Haddix admittedly has a little bit of a high impact in the early game. That's because sometimes he just leaves his lane because he's so far ahead that he can afford to, and he'll just go to mid. It's really going to be interesting to see, I think, how this team tackles this, what exactly their last few weeks of scrims since they've made this change has gone through. But you don't have to just take it from us. We've got J-Max standing by in the booth with the Leviathans to tell us a little more.
That's right, I'm in the booth with the Atlantis Leviathans, new solo laner for the team. But before we talk to Haddix, we're going to make our way a little bit down the line and start over here with Zapman. Now, Zapman, brand new phase and a brand new god, maybe in your role. Give me some of your initial thoughts on at least Ishtar. Do you think maybe we're going to see her at all kind of during this early phase?
Yeah, I think so. I think people like to play the new god, and she seems pretty decent, playable for sure.
Okay. Now, it's customary for the casters, at least this season, to do kind of a new round of drafting for the fantasy league that's out there. If you guys haven't been following that, take a look. Interesting play that was made by Hindu Man this time around is he drafted all of the Leviathans players initially except for one. The one that wasn't drafted was Shinto because he got picked up a little bit earlier on. But then there's actually a trade. So now, Shinto, give me your thoughts that Hindu Man is putting all of his faith in the entirety of the Atlantis Leviathans for this draft.
We love Hindu and we're going to make Hindu proud.
Try and make Hindu Man proud. You're going to need to. And now we're going to move over, well, at least to the new discussion topic. Now in a different blue and yellow, instead of the yellow primary, blue secondary, now it's the blue primary. Haddix joins the roster for the Atlantis Leviathans. You've had some history with this team before, though, Haddix. You gotten to play with these guys. I believe it's during some world championships in years prior. How does it feel being back with the Leviathans?
I mean, it feels great. Honestly, I kind of expected to join SPL with the Leviathans, so ended up where I wanted, you know.
Well, there you have it. Haddix back with the team he thought he was going to start it out with. That's it for us over here in the booth. We'll throw it back over to Des to keep it going.
We're all trying to do Hindu proud. I think that's what I got out of that, right? Haddix is excited to be there. Ishtar's a maybe. But they're trying to make Hindu proud. We're trying to make Hindu proud. It's really hard. Trust me. I've been trying.
I got here this year, and I still don't think I've been able to pull it off.
No, it'll never happen. Either way, it's going to be very fun. We'll see what we can do in that regard. And what we can do is keep things on track by talking now about the Warriors. Again, a difficult phase 2 for them. I believe at one point a 6-loss streak in a row. Sets were not going their way. And compared to the first phase this year where things were not impeccable, that's not how I would describe it, but they were looking great.
Oh, they were looking very solid.
They were an incredible team. Fell off incredibly hard in the middle of phase 2, started to pick back up towards the end. But it's the solo lane once again that has almost always looked incredibly solid for this team and is going to be I guess not a new matchup for Haddix, right? He's played against Nika before. He's just done it on the bolts. Now it's going to be how well he can pair with Panatom versus Nika and Cuvo and the entirety of the teams.
Yeah, for me, both of these teams, Leviathans and the Oni Warriors, have been a victim of meta changes, right? Trying to find what gods your team excels at playing and how good are they in the current meta. When the Assassins in solo lane were popping off, the Warriors looked great. Nika could hard carry the games with the best stats, the cleanest, that sort of thing. But now it's been a little bit of shift. Now we have a completely different solo lane meta, hopefully. We'll have to see how they're able to make those changes. But if there's one thing I know, it's that when you look over to the solo lane of the Oni Warriors, Nika's going to be doing his job. Even if his blue buff's getting invaded, he's staying relatively even in XP, relatively even in gold. He's not going to be getting too far behind. He's going to be getting to the backline and making those carries' lives miserable despite the gold deficit. So if you're looking for Haddix to come out swinging and really just stomp this lane, I can't imagine that's what we're going to see here. Sure, Haddix can make those rotations and make the carries' lives miserable, but I don't think Nika's faltering in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, this dude literally started the year competitively with a pentakill, right? So,
yeah.
So like, that feels pretty good if you're qualifying back into the SPL. Again, maybe not a position you would have wanted to be in to begin with, something they're going to try to fight not to have to do again. And then on top of that, you are getting a pentakill. You come into phase 1, just guns blazing as a team. Murky middle of the year. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see if maybe they can be a little more reinvigorated as we jump into picks and bans for game number 1 here of phase 3. Again, that's going to be maybe the only time I count that because it's going to get that one's going to get even more ridiculous than the individual days. Leviathans will be your first pick team. And Trelly, there's been 2 full patches, 1 bonus patch, I believe, since the last time that we had a broadcast. But on top of that, there's another bonus patch on Tuesday that's going to be dropping. Some of the more notable things, like ESET, Amuz and Cobb nerfed things that were the people that were top picks. There's going to be some changes in itemization, right? Junglers that have come up. We just talked about Ishtar being in the game. We talked about Najah buffs, something that it feels like some of these teams and some of these players are more than willing to pull out. I'm expecting it to be kind of a mix, a half and half, right? Some of the things that did change probably rising up, some of the guys that got nerfed maybe falling off, but also a good mix of other picks that are still just strong, right? Like AMC, there was a lot of good things about him. He's banned on this list by the Leviathans, so as it turns out, a lot of it was the shred, right? His clear potential, he could bully mid, but sometimes in team fights he just couldn't deal with the ult.
Yeah, and it looks like still typical bans from the Leviathans, right? Daji was already running the meta. You don't want Cuvo ever to have that pick, and the AMC, just that pressure for mid. But just focusing some of those supports for the Oni Warriors, as well as the King Arthur not wanting Haddix to get one of his favorite picks in that lane. So I think you pretty much called it right. Some of those old meta picks, some things just matchup oriented. And the Khepri, that's always one of those picks that you never want to see. If the Emoji got grabbed for Wrong You, that would be something that is pretty run-of-the-mill as well. So I think we're going to see some new picks, of course, but it really just depends on how much these teams have been learning from their scrims. And it looks like something's never changed.
Yeah, something's never changed. Also, I'm going to throw this out there before I clarify on what has never changed. A little correction. Oni Warriors are the first pick team. And first pick, they grab Yamojis. So some things, never change. We were talking about it. And maybe kind of glancing at the fact that support might be feeling a little stronger, right? Some of the items, specifically like Manticore Spike, kind of getting picked up a little more all around by a lot of people, maybe enhancing a couple of things. The bans for the Warriors, the Ymir, the Terra, the King Arthur, the other side, you had mentioned the Khepri, the Dodgy, the AMC. A lot of support focus, and then immediately this Yamoja pickup for the Warriors. The Leviathans answer back with one god that I admit I was kind of thinking that we were maybe done with, but we're not, in the E set, and one that I expected to be on the rise with the Naja here.
Yeah, definitely. The Naja is no surprise, and actually the Oni Warriors are going to grab a ton of healing already. Coming out the gates with the Emoja, that's no surprise, but the Guan Yu, the Fabless hoops, I've seen that strat in ranked a little bit. It could be something that they're wanting to run, as well as just getting Dardes the Morgan. That's a pick that he's never going to hate grabbing, and any sort of jungler that you're drafting into that, you're setting up for. So I could see Dardes turning into the Morgan. I mean, they're using the Morgan Ultimate to turn into Naja if need be. You have that cage now that the Leviathans have drafted, so they've got circles.
And not only that, but not a single god on the board so far that can jump or do anything to get away from that cage. So you're talking about like Morgan. Okay, cool. Transform into Iset, transform into Naja. I guess Odin can leap out of it. So if Morgan transforms into Odin, you can then get out of there. But that's the only one on the board. Yamoja, Guan Yu, and Morgan in the base kit. Not able to escape that cage. And that's actually something that is going to be important, right? 100% anti-heal on that. You're mentioning the healing, the Emoji, the Guan Yu. If Morgan transforms into either of those, that's just even more healing for the squad. Anti-heal was buffed, right? There's a couple of gods that had the duration on their anti-heal buffed, as well as some of the items that have that maybe being a little more kind of strong army out there. And yet they're still locking in two at the beginning. Like, they don't seem to be worried that that's something that could potentially come up here.
Yeah, it looks like they just want to play through the sustain. I think in combat healing does get a little bit worse. If they get the Cursed Onk, that could hurt their draft a little bit. But with the Oni Warriors here, they're trying to get Cuvo on something that could facilitate Dardes. You're looking to get a double assassin dive of some sort, or just a strong ultimate. Notably, the Lancelot did take some nerfs, but is still available if they want to go for something like that. And now, because, we've seen Zapman play the E-set. I was like, surely we're not about to see the E-set carry day one, phase 3. And now that I see the X-Ball hover, that at least, lowers that for me a little bit. I don't think that we're going to see Zap piling this E-set.
If it was like Uller,
yeah,
that
could be
could go either. But for the X-Ball, Xbalanque played a lot last week. I know a lot of people were talking about it. The pros were like kind of joking about it, where it's just like, they keep turning off the lights, and that's just curtains for us. We'll see if maybe that ends up being the case here, as it's not even locked in. Turned from a guy wearing a jaguar pelt on his head to an actual elephant. Ganesh is going to be played here. Something that we don't get to see, I want to say too often, but silences. I mean, if you're looking at the squad on the other side, Ganesh can be pretty controlling here.
Yeah, I think stopping the Talu assault in the back line is always a strong bit, and you can dash through the rivers if you get stuck. Ganesh, if you're using the Dharmic Pillar as well, I think it's always going to be a solid team fight tool, and more specifically, I think Zapman wanted to not pick first, right? He's like, wait, I could pick this X-Ball, but I'd rather see...
So this, could be me, but, what if it wasn't?
Yeah, I want to see what Vogue grabs first before I pick my ADC, so I'm going to make Wrong You grab this Ganesha, and now we finally get to see what Cuvo's going to play. That really is what's going to spell the end of this draft for me. Because at the moment, I don't see too many great options for Dardes. The Naja is always something you can go to if you're like, hey, I'm getting ganked, I need some help, I'm going to go up into the air, stall for a bit. Awesome. That, however, is a great transformation. The double Pele, that could do some damage.
And it feels like Pele was on the rise in phase 2 as well, right? A couple more instances of her being picked up. Scream comes to my mind, but that was also just kind of an insane run for the Dragon, so maybe that's why it sticks out with me. As well as this Rom pickup, someone who we haven't seen a whole lot of. If we did not do incredibly well. They did lock in Uller, so that does make things ambiguous on the Leviathans. So we'll ignore them for a little bit. it and instead just focus on these last 2 picks for the Warriors.
Yeah.
Snipes come into my mind, right? You've got heals, you've got control, you've got prot shred, and you've got Pele. It feels like this team for the Warriors is a really solid draft.
Yeah, no doubt. And you brought up the Odin cage, and I think that's something that we can't gloss over here.
No.
You're not turning into Pele to get out of the Odin cage. You know?
I don't think any of them are turning, like, outside of Morgan, none of them have a way out.
Yeah, you could always just turn into Odin and be like, you're in my cage. You jumped in, guess what?
You're not caged in here with me. I'm caged in here with you, and you're now caged in here with me.
Exactly. You activated my
double cage.
trap card, and now I'm going to cage the Naja and the E set, and maybe we've got some decent damage. The horse, there's no way to run away from the horse when you're in the cage. So I do think some interesting team fight options on board for the Oni Warriors, but I can't tell if this Odin was a pick that the Leviathans have had cooking up for a bit, or it was just an answer to the healing. Probably
a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think probably the second one, though. Just so much healing. If you don't want to get that much anti-heal, if you don't want to commit all of your eggs into, like, let's just stop the healing, then we can win after, let's get the Odin cage. It'll work just fine.
So now we got to ask the hard question.
Okay.
And Trelly, I'm interested to see if there's even an answer for this one. And I think there maybe there can be, at least an inclination towards one.
Right.
Ullr gets locked in, ESET gets locked in. We have seen several times this year even where Zap would take the ESET, Shinto would take the Ullr,
Yep.
and it was weird, but they won games with it, so who could say too much about it? Is that something that you expect to see, or do you think it's just it's too asinine to even try right now?
I mean, the meta has shifted so much. I'm not against it. It's just you're going to be up against the Rama. As long as the Isai gets some damage online, your clear is going to be fine. But the big burst damage at the end of this Windfire Wheels, at the end of this Naja ult, has to be circle protection. I mean, that's what that's the end goal, right? Take someone up, they land in the circle, pop. That's it. It's not that much damage unless you're building the full damage. So I think the combo itself could be done in duo or in mid. It's not going to be the worst, but I think I'd rather see Ullr in duo.
We'll see whether or not it ends up happening here as we jump into game number 1 again of Phase 3. Leviathans and Warriors kicking us off with J-Mac and Myth.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gore and Trelly. Phase number 3, the final phase of the regular season and the start of our roadmap to the World Championships. It's going to be taking place in January. What better way to start than with the Oni Warriors and the former world champions, the Atlantis Leviathans, facing off for our first game, our first match of the third phase. And a lot of interesting picks already come out right out the gate. I think the one that probably catches my eye the most, Mifflin, though, is going to be this Guan Yu over for Nika, because this is a guy that we do not see very much of recently.
Yeah, I mean, if this were even 2-3 weeks ago, I'd be like, yeah, Guan Yu, crazy stuff, right? But if you've been keeping track of the ranked meta, or if you've been talking to the pros about how scrims were going, Guan Yu seems to be pretty dominant, and it's because of one item. One item explicitly has just risen him through the power rankings. Fey Blessed Hoops, man. Already Guan Yu's healing was very hard to deal with, especially considering how, I suppose, limited it feels supports can be in their relic selection. Do you really want to be forced into picking up an Ankh? For the most part, probably not. Phantom Shell and Tangling Wings also powerful. So Guan Yu healing, already pretty good. Now gives over a 7.5% HP shield, so long as you could pick up a flower. And I'm thinking they're pretty capable of doing exactly that. Guan also doesn't really struggle too much so in the laning phase. Should be able to hold his own relatively well. And up against something like an Odin, until about level 5 maybe, Odin's not going to be able to one-shot wave with Bird Bomb. If Nika decides to prioritize his heal as his level order, he can keep that wave alive pretty easily.
We see the junglers make their rotation over to try and get some of that 2v2 totem control that's become so popular as of recent. Cuvo Fred going to push Panatom out. Panatom misses the sash, and the damage from Cuvo may just be enough to keep the Naja at bay, so that way Nika can pick up the first totem of coup for the Oni Warriors. And this Naja popping back up too, it's something that we talked to Captain Twig about this week when we had the junglers in studio. And that change to his ultimate really seems to be pushing this god back up into favorites with the junglers.
Yeah, also gets really good utilization of, again, some of those new items. The Mana Core Spike's so powerful. I am curious to see Panatom electing to pick up mana potions. Generally, junglers like to get really active. I suppose just leveraging the healing in kit.
A lot of damage onto Cuvo. Cuvo will be able to heal some of that up thanks to the passive of the Pele. And one thing that was kind of alluded to on the desk, the back and forth, does end up being whether or not this E-set went to the Leviathans mid laner Shinto, or was Zapman going to bring out the Mage ADC once again in this game. He is going to be piloting the E-set and starting up with some of that stacking. So at least for Zapman, is this just to have something that can kind of be safe to clear up against Vote more than anything, or do you think this is just Shinto's good on Ullr, we're just going to keep him on that god?
A little column A, a little column B. I'm sure Shinto's very confident in the matchup up against the Morrigan. Connect the axe. All you need is the combo once, and all of a sudden the Morrigan's no longer allowed to fight until she goes back to base. But Zapman on E-set has got a little bit more spice behind it on this newer map. You can pick up that Scepter, help out with clear, give you a little bit more kill potential. Gold Fury had become a lot stronger over the last 4 or 5 months. Pyromancer generally that first objective, but now with Scepter and an E-set in the duo lane, maybe you can start to make some early Gold Fury plays, start to rotate over just as it spawns up. Circle Protection, of course, not only the best confirmation tool in the game, but also makes you very safe in situations exactly like that. That healing as well as damage mitigation makes it a much more appetizing pull for the Leviathans. So I'm excited to see how they decide to play around it. In the past, almost completely contrary to what I'm exactly saying, they've left Zapman alone on an island and just said, hey, get your items, get ready, and drop your ultimate on Fire Giant when we pull it. That has worked for them. But with this style of composition, with how mobile Naja can be, the DPS output Shinto should be able to pick up pretty soon, I'm thinking the Leviathans have got pretty decent odds at going for an early gold pool. That's not even talking about Dharmic Pillars just absolutely shredding that objective.
I think you're right to highlight that, the fact that there is just so much objective control and burst damage that the Leviathans have, whether it be wrong you to slowly whittle it down with that ultimate, Zapman for confirmation. So I'm curious when that first Gold Fury, or maybe Zapman makes an early rotation over towards mid to try and get some Pyromancer potentially started up. We'll keep our eyes on the timer for that. But as you can already see, as around Neilmaw's waist, the Scepter that you mentioned, something that is back in the game now. You'll notice the 2 Serpent camps that used to be there, at least for the dual lane, are now gone. Instead, it's been replaced by a single Serpent, now carrying this Scepter, just as potent as it used to be.
Yeah, I am really excited to see how the Scepter affects the support God pool. I would assume that it would mean you're looking towards a little bit more aggressive stylings over there. You want someone to get in your face and really find usage from the Scepter. Umoja doesn't immediately jump to mind, but already using it.
Rivers Review, gonna catch Zapman out. A little bit more damage, one more auto, or one more shot from Neilmaw will grab first blood for the Oni Warriors to put them on the board for Phase 3.
Yeah, Zapman just stepping a little too far up. Didn't have the ultimate just yet. Dardes lines up against Shinto in the 1v1. No way Shinto's willing to jump in here. Should be able to pick up the right camps for his troubles, though. Zap's got to play a little bit further back in those situations. You've got to wait for either your ultimate for your own survivability or for wrong you to get Phantom Shell. Neither one of them available just yet, so an easy pickup for the Warriors.
Easy purple buff steal immediately afterwards. Neil and Vote able to take that one away and put Zapman a little bit further behind. Though purple buff doesn't really mean the most for an E-set, it's not like it's going to benefit her quite as much,
gold,
but
though.
It's still experience in gold stripped away from him, who just now hit into level 5 for Zapman, whereas opposition Vote level 6 already.
That's a rough start for the E-set, and E-set's a pretty decent target for Cubo Fred out of the jungle. If Cubo decides, hey, I'm going to stick to the duo lane, I'm going to make sure that Vote stays ahead, he's a really hard scaling attack speed hunter, let's just go ahead and put our eggs in that basket. Yeah, I'm thinking Pele can close that gap relatively easily. Some counterplay potential for Zapman means, well, you can at least wing gust the knockup, you can avoid that, but as far as just DPS is concerned, I'm thinking Pele might be able to bring that fight very early on. I'm excited to see how the jungle itemization changed. We talked about it a little bit in the waiting room. All the maces becoming a little bit more viable over the last couple of patches. Already Jotun's Wrath rushed by both Panatom and Cubo Fred. But I'm expecting to see the itemization shift between the two now. We're going to hit a branching path. Generally, Pele likes to go towards that Soul Eater. A lot of people consider that core. Soul Eater, of course, having some slight nerfs might dissuade Cubo Fred from moving towards that item. Whereas Panatom, I almost want to see him go to Manicore Spike like now.
And speaking kind of on itemization, you know, the deaths brought up a lot of healing that's available to the Oni Warriors. You were mentioning earlier, potentially at least a Curse Stomp might need to be picked up to answer. But do you think there's any other anti-heal? I mean, Brawler's Beatstick is kind of the first that maybe jumps out to mind. Is that something that Panatom or Shinto picks up?
Yeah, we're getting the basics, man. I mean, Contagions, I'm not surprised. Maybe a Pestilence here or there. Yeah, you want the standards, especially against this draft from the Warriors. There's just so much sustain between Neil, between Nika, and any transformation Dardes might elect to go towards. If Cubo Fred picks up Soul Eater, it just feels like it's too much value for the Leviathans to leave on the table.
We'll have to see how at least it can go for Zapman in this lane. After taking that first death earlier, has now lost both purple buffs immediately afterwards, so starting to lose out
on some of that early golden experience for the E-set duo. And it seems that a lot of that, at least that scepter control, has been in favor of the Oni Warriors because of it. You can see it once again around Neilmaw's waist. And that's another little bit. Sure, I mean, it's not the double camp that used to be there, so you don't have that chance to kind of split that XP. But that one little camp, it really does start to stack up over time.
It does. What is that, 2, 3 in a row now? The Oni Warriors have been able to strip away. We haven't seen a counter rotation from the Leviathans just yet. Probably concerned about that follow-up. It's something Trelli had brought up on the desk. If you're playing around this E-set, circle protection, sure, pretty decent follow-up on a Windfire wheel, but only if it's charged up. And it's pretty difficult to charge when everybody's been removed from the playfield. So maybe we don't see Panatom make that rotation. Might be waiting for Shinto to hit some power spikes halfway through with that Transcendence. Maybe second item, you can start to alleviate some of that pressure, but the longer you let it happen, the further behind Zatman is going to be.
Panatom does take Cubo to the sky. Shinto's waiting on the ground to follow up. A lot of damage, but not quite enough. Now Nika up on the Cavalry, will charge in, but will only find Wrong Yu with the stun. And a quick dash out, gets him away from the axe toss. The Oni Warriors should be out of this fight unless Haddix can find a cage to hold them in.
And not this time. Gungnir's might nearly able to find the stun. Had he connected with either Nika or Dardes, likely would have gone for that cage, considering a 4-stack from the Leviathans on that right-hand side. Roaming Death Ball, though. Looks like the Chaos team would like to find a pick. They're very capable of moving in towards that Gold Fury. Just haven't found the opportunity.
Dardes walks up in the middle of 3 and gets quite a lot of damage up against Shinto. A Dark Omen combo with him and Neilmaw. Really putting in some work to poke out the mid laner. But for now, the Oni Warriors originally had stacked up towards that mid. Could make a move towards left once again. Zatman pushed away from his purple buff, level half down compared to Vote. We saw in the charts earlier, it was 2,000 golden XP separating the teams, and with every purple buff that gets taken away, with every Oracle Harpy, and even a Gold Fury, the Oni Warriors are making an early stance in game number 1 against the Leviathans. No answer back for the Levi's, and there's nothing they can grab. Pyro isn't available to them, so it'll just be the Gold Fury for the Warriors.
I love that decision-making process from the Oni Warriors. Heat check Zatman, drop a deep ward between those towers. You're going to realize whether or not Wrong Yu's making a rotation through there. Ward coverage pretty decent from them in the jungle as well. The only pathing the Leviathans could have taken is through that top left-hand side of the jungle camp, but even then, I feel like you've got such good vision control everywhere else. You're willing to hedge your bets. If Zatman's not able to rotate in, you're not really concerned about steal potential. Best case was like a hail of arrows from Shinto, and we're not quite at the point where that's enough of a threat to stop Dardes or stop Cubo Fred's burst. So the Warriors just strangling the map, and all of this aggression, all of this pressure has been originated in the duo lane. Zatman falling down early has had a trickle-down effect for the last 10 minutes and has put the Oni Warriors in a 3K lead immediately. And by taking out the Gold Fury when they did, there was no response. Pyromancer wasn't up just yet. Now it is, and the Warriors can start to move their pressure to this side of the map.
Will be a greater Scorpion for the Warriors. Panatom getting aggressive, finds the sash on Neil, and takes Neil to the sky. There wasn't a lot of follow-up on Cubo last time. There's quite a bit for Neil. A little bit more damage will do it. Haddix over the wall. Does find the dunk and the first kill for the Leviathans. But now Nika trying to get in. The cage holds it back. The circle of protection gives the bit of healing over to the Leviathans. But the Warriors are still going aggressive. Nika in the back line holds down Wrong Yu, but a stun from Shinto holds them back.
Slight fumble there from the Warriors. I'm not sure how Panatom is able to just walk on out of there. Had Dardes just popped circle protection a little bit sooner, Panatom's dead to the damage, but instead he's allowed to walk through the Warriors side of the map. Bit of tunnel vision, horse blinders as they chase out the core of the Leviathans. At the end of the day, though, it is still a trade that keeps the game at dead even, unless Vote takes this one.
Vote just winning this fight. Gets the circle out up in the sky to try and delay for as long as he can. Snipe 2. Ooh. Third one doesn't hit either. Vote as good as dead here. The stun will get the beads, and the damage after will take his life. Good stun from Panatom to close out the kill.
Nearly able to turn that fight around. That early Executioner is already doing so much damage, but the Oni Warriors and having Vote play so aggressively there are at least able to look elsewhere on the map. Pyromancer taken, so the Leviathans, in finding their pick, will find nothing else. Maybe a purple buff invade. I don't think they have timer on that one, though, so should just about be it. Zatman's got to be happy about it, though. This is the first neutral camp he's gotten in a whole lot of time. Purple buff finally should go his way as well. Seems like he's confident in clearing it out. Panatom back to base, so Zap gets a little bit more solo farm and closes up a bit of that experience gap that it established.
We're Warriors at nearly 2 levels fully up for Vote. Now that's closed down to about 1, maybe a half level between those two. But the level 12 power spike for Vote means he has Aegis. And Neil Ma chasing out Zapman. Bubble is good.
Oh, no.
Rivers hold him in. Is this a solo kill for Neil Ma? The stun in the Rivers will do it. And the Oni Warriors' second kill, both of them now on the support.
That's the Zap Classic, man. You could have just gone back to base. Things were on the up. You got your neutral farm. You got your purple.
Baby.
Get out of there, bro. Oh, you hate to see that. Just when the Leviathans catch a slight break, just puts them right back where they were. Maybe he could take out Nika. No, he's on a horse.
No. Well, he'll jump down off the horse. Stuns 2. And then he walks away, so they won't get Nika. They will at least get his ultimate there. And we'll maybe force him back to base. While Shinto takes a little bit of pressure from mid from the 3 stack of the Warriors. Panatom is waiting. He's been able to find a couple of these ultimates throughout these fights. First one didn't really net them much. Last one managed to get a pick on Neil Ma. So it seems that Panatom is kind of that facilitator for the team, at least in this game.
Yeah, and there's a bit of parity between both of these junglers' playstyles. Not sure Vote realizes he's standing on a ward there. Both Pele and Naja are the, I'm going to get my trade. I'm going in and someone's dying and I'm probably going to follow him type of pick.
Well, someone who's going to die, or should die, in the midst of 3 is Nika. Gets the heal right after the cage. 4 Leviathans there. He will get the dash to go out, but it won't get him far enough. Almost able to get up to the horse in time to get out, but still does fall. Pressure in mid from the Oni Warriors. But with Zapman not over on the right side of the map, no chance to maybe try and sneak an early fire giant for Leviathans. Instead, it'll be tier 2 tower pressure for the Warriors.
Yeah, they got to get out of here quickly. Panatom's only job is to lock them down. TP in from Haddix will go unrewarded. Phenomenal disengage from the Oni Warriors, dropping that tier 2 down to about 50% HP on both the duo lane and center of the map. The Leviathans have to just have such large rotations if they want to hit pay dirt, especially if they're going to rotate to shut down a Guan Yu who's gone Breastplate of Valor and Glad Shield, that it just creates that kind of space in the map where the Warriors are allowed to throw around their weight. Zapman's not stopping Vote in the 1v1 just about ever, so Vote's going to keep doing this until someone shows him that there's presence on this side of the map. You're going to need to see a rotation from Panatom or maybe Shinto to slow down that pressure.
Aggressive plays by the Warriors, set up for Fury. The wrong you and Zap are here. A little too late, though, to stop that one. So another major neutral objective goes to the Oni Warriors. 4,600 gold. A bit of a dip in the XP, at least. Only 2,700 separating them now. For the Oni Warriors, it has been nothing short of greatness, at least for their farm game across the map. Neutral standard camps between the Scepter, the mid-Harpies, and whatnot. And then nothing but objective play so far for these guys.
Checking back in with some of these jungle builds, though. Seems like Cuvo Fred agrees. Soul Eater changes don't really make it too appetizing, so instead goes down towards that standard Erendite. Likely either a Brawler's Beatstick, could be a Crusher as well. Has good synergy with the auto attack style of a Pele. Panatom, on the other hand, Brawler's Beatstick for himself down that Emerald Mail tree. So a little bit more survivability over the Leviathan's jungler. Maybe has to act as that primary initiator, considering Wrongyu, for the most part, wants to sit in the back line, keep his teammates alive with that silence protection aura. Who's starting the fight? It's either going to be Panatom or Haddix, and, well, Haddix probably wants some beads burnt before he goes in, or probably wants to get through some of those shells first. So, makes sense to me that Panatom's going to try and pick up some of that slack.
And kind of doing a little bit of a roundup on some of those other items. Fabless Tubes that you mentioned earlier for Guan Yu. Not only will there be some for Nika there with the Guan Yu, but also Neil Ma has picked up that item second. So a lot of easy heal application to get those procs for both of them. And maybe they can try and make use of it in this next upcoming team fight, because the Oni Warriors are pushing forward for some pressure.
Weird spot to force the engagement on a red buff. This is a high-risk play for low reward.
Neil Ma does have the river to at least zone out. Nika on the other side of the cage to try and keep them out. In the sky is Vote. Snipe is good, at least for a little bit of initial damage, but not enough yet to take out Panatom. Big heal and shell comes through, but Vote finds the first kill of the fight. Cubo Fred to close up immediately afterwards. And back towards the right side. Unfortunate for Wrongyu, cannot run far enough. 5 kills for the Oni Warriors, 3 of them on Neil Ma.
Leviathans just got baited by Fabless there, man. The HP shields kept popping up on Neil. Nika walks through with the healing as well. And Neil stayed at 10% HP for maybe 15 entire seconds. Leviathans, one by one, say, well, we fought for too long. We can't let them get away for free and just walk in and lose their lives.
Whoa, Dardes gets comboed by Zapman and Shinto. This is all to set up for the Fire Giant that's being done by the Oni Warriors. So that'll at least go to 4. Unfortunate for Dardes, will not get the benefit of said buff, but a beautiful bait at least by Dardes and Nika, so that way the Warriors can confirm another objective.
Really smart play from Shinto there. The pre-beads to make sure no stun's going to stop his DPS, just to confirm that kill, realizing that, sure, Fire Giant's not on Dardes right now, but if I kill him, it's as if I had eliminated one of those buffs regardless. I think Shinto would have been fine with losing his life in exchange, so just icing on the cake that he's able to make it out alive as well. Dardes, though, I'm sure, not too pressed by missing out on that Fire Giant. You lose a bit of that one-shot potential in base stance, but now that we're talking about Siege, and that's exactly the topic of conversation for the Oni Warriors, you're probably just going to be transforming into a frontliner and creating space regardless, so not too concerned in that situation. The only real counterplay Dardes could have had was, oh, he pre-beads, I'll just pre-Aegis, but that's really hard to want to do. So clean play from Shinto, easy pickup, going to make it a little bit more difficult for the Oni Warriors to siege out. But the Oni Warriors have done a good deal of the work already. Half HP on both center and left T2.
Now there was at least a Trebuchet picked up during that for Leviathan, so they've got a little bit of help in that mid lane, keep that tower alive a little bit longer. But the Oni Warriors haven't really been putting the pressure towards mid. It seems that they're fine with giving up some of that pressure to continue to keep Zapman down and continue to at least push up on this left side of the map. Tier 2 is at half before they even started this siege, and it's not going to last for much longer. Only person there is not Cuvo Fred from the Warriors. He's dealing with the Trebuchet in mid, but that also means that Shinto isn't there to try and stop this one out. 3, make that now 4 for the Leviathans versus 4 for the Warriors at the Bird defense.
Warriors just got to slow play it. They realize Cuvo Fred's going to start working his way through the map. Warriors want to split up the defense of the Leviathans. So the Leviathans have a couple of avenues available to them from here. You either say, all right, we can all group up, 5-man stack on the 4-man of the Oni Warriors and try and force the engagement before Cuvo Fred can get involved, or you just play into their hands, 4-on-4, 1-on-1. Seems like that's the case, and Panatom, despite the deficit, comes out pretty ahead. Does cost him the Windfire Wheels, but he's at least able to take away Cuvo Fred's ultimate as well. But only one of them's got Fire Giant and a multitude of healers on their team. I'm thinking Cuvo Fred's going to be just fine.
Tier 2 in left earlier, Tier 2 in mid now. Only one more tower on the solo lane side of the map stands for the Leviathans to defend. But they're going to need everybody. All hands on deck towards the left side. That Phoenix down to a 3rd HP. But both taking a little bit of damage. We'll get a lot of healing back.
Gross.
And those shields, those heals that keep coming through. Curse Dog and an ult from Haddix through the back to hold them out. Circle protection won't get a lot of value as far as damage is concerned, but it does heal up some of the team. Boat forced in the sky, barely makes it through on a sliver of health. Can he get the last shot on Zap? He does, and Cuvo Fred closes out the kill.
Left side Phoenix burning. The Leviathans want to keep it alive, but they cannot. Still 4 strong, so the base shouldn't break unless Shinto falls.
Shinto, Aegis will not save him except for only a moment. He's able to get back with the leap to get to the fountain, and the Oni Warriors have taken the left side bird. Dardes will transform to the east set to give themselves another massive heal. Everybody back up. Cuvo Fred now up in the sky with Panatom, but he's going to need more damage on landing. Shinto's got that to make sure he picks up the kill, but Nika finds one in the back line with some help. A 2-for-2 trade under the mid Phoenix, and the Oni Warriors will grab the bird.
2 for 2 for 2, because 2 birds fall down in exchange as well. The Leviathans on the chase, stun no good, but slow connects onto Vote. If Shinto can connect the axe, that should create the time for the Leviathans to close gap, but not going to be the case. Neomaz finally got his own back, and Riptide will close that one out. The Oni Warriors so strong on that siege. It's got to be incredibly frustrating to be on the Leviathans right now. The amount of healing that we saw was criminal between the HP shields of these Fade Blasts, Nika and Neomaz just spamming their heals respectively. A transformation from Dardes into E-set to get even further heal and siege potential. The Leviathans just haven't got enough resources to deal with all of that sustain. You've got a Brawler's Beat Stick here or there. You've got just about 1 Onk. I'm thinking maybe this is a situation where you likely have to consider maybe 2 Onks if the Oni Warriors go back to a similar draft.
Leviathans at least get a little bit to help them out. Gold Fury does get picked up by this squad. But now with the Fire Giant having fallen off the waist of the Warriors and only 20 seconds till its respawn, you can see the Oni Warriors have made their beeline to that side. And man, watching the amount of healing that was coming the way of the Oni Warriors. Remember when we were watching the mitigation Robin? It was a game of when will his shield fall off? That's what it felt like, but for all 5 players on the Warriors during that Phoenix Siege.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It might not even necessarily be the healing. Doug, can we get a look at the healing charts? But I'm thinking Fade Blast is doing the majority of it. Sure, 6K here, 3K here. That's not crazy. It's the 7.5% HP shields that are getting dropped every second, it feels like, by the Oni Warriors that just make it so difficult for the Leviathans to actually hit pay dirt. We saw a fully channeled cage with Zatman's ultimate on top of it and wrong use cage around it as well. And the Oni Warriors are just standing on top of each other. Nika and Neilma just heal, 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 shield, shield, shield. It's so difficult to deal with that situation. Maybe the Leviathans, if they're capable of it, and this is a hard ask because of how far behind they are, but if they could desync their aggressive ultimates, that might be able to burn through some of these resources.
Fire was taken by Warriors, and only 1 Phoenix left standing. Spirit Ball does a lot to Neil. Cage will catch him out, but Neil's got a cage of his own with the River's Rebuke. Double E-set ultimate down. Neilma still alive through all of that. It only was until just now that he goes out. It's a double for Zapman. Dardes, Beads, and Aegis in the backline. Panatom has to find the shot from the cell, but can't do it. Instead, will take Vote up to the sky, but he needs help on landing to get that kill, and Shinto's got it.
The Leviathans, when they see their opportunity, they take it. Just an immediate pick. Neilma dropped down. It's about 10% before they even really start the Phoenix Siege in earnest. And the Leviathans say, well, that's it. They can't group up on him. He needs to retreat. That's 1 bit of healing lost. That's 1 bit of shielding lost. And they're able to slowly and methodically take out every individual member of the Oni Warriors. Fortunately for the Warriors, they've done so much well up until this point that there's really not much the Leviathans are capable of doing in exchange. They should be able to get both of these Phoenixes back up, but besides that, no counter siege, no objectives on the map to take either. So the Oni Warriors may have dropped the ball a bit, but all the Leviathans are capable of doing now is extending the match.
Atlantis Leviathans hold back, and that was at a 10K plus gold deficit that they're able to find 3 picks during that fight. Shorted up a little bit, 8,400, and as we start approaching a little bit further on, that goal will mean a little bit less and less, but you're seeing 6 slots on a couple of different players. Vote only a little bit of gold away from getting a Silver Branch bow to kind of finish off that build, and that's kind of been, at least from what I've been seeing in a lot of my games, Smith, this really does seem to be the standard Hunter build as of right now that Vote's gone.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of just the standard, like, hey, I'm not going to leave it up to risk. I don't need a random crit to take you out. I'll just have consistent DPS that should be able to shred through that front line. And it's a good pickup into this style of composition from the Leviathan. Zatman goes for an HP stack with Warlocks. Panatom slightly on the Bruiser scale, I suppose, with that Shield of Regrowth. Haddix, of course, just has too much HP to deal with. Wrong you, that exact same situation. So it's not as if you really need Vote to, like, one-shot Shinto. That's not exactly his job. It's be a chainsaw, deal with that front line, make sure the Leviathans can't just W key. So great build for it, and great God to make that build work.
Haddix has been putting in a lot of work in these last fights. The cages have been holding Neil, at least in place, for his team to follow up. We'll see if he can do it again on this left side. Charges up the stun, will throw and hit Neil. But a lot of damage pumped back to Wrong You, nearly 200 in auto with those Kinsai procs from Vote. Is shredding through the support's health bar.
And it's not as if the Leviathans have got the ability to just press 1 and it be a heal. So every bit of poke that Vote's able to put out is massive, and he's allowed to use his HP bar a little bit more so as a resource because, look at that, he takes a Stray ability. Wouldn't believe it looking at his HP anymore, already back to full. So Wrong You takes about 20% earlier in the fight. He's still there. He's still waiting for that HP 5 to help him out.
Oni Warriors, if they can find a couple of picks, could maybe end this game so long as they stay alive. Phoenix this weekend will go down easily. Nika to the back line, goes for Panatom and Shinto, diverts the attention back to Wrong You as the cage is dropped from Haddix, and the Phoenix is starting to melt away, but all 5 of the Warriors are grouped up and are still alive, but not Dardes. He gets bursted down by Shinto and Zatman up in the sky, does find the snipes. Vote picks a 1-for-1 trade, but will Vote be able to make it out? Aegis holds out, but the Spirit Ball connects right at the end. The Leviathans have once again defended their base. It's a double kill for Zatman. Neilma gets up as far as he can go. Spirit Ball off the mark, but the stun by Haddix will seal the deal. 4 down for the Warriors.
Warriors just struggling to secure some of these kills. I like what we saw from Nika. Goes in immediately on a Panatom, lands a couple of shots and says, all right, well, you're not blinking on my back line. I'm going to go ahead and try and help them out again. Stuns Wrong You. Hopes that Vote's got the DPS to finish him off. Simply does not. I'd like to see the Oni Warriors play a bit slower on these sieges, because this is twice now where we've seen them all in engage on first push and then immediately get crushed. If you could survive the first rotation of Odin abilities, if you can make it out of that circle protection, you're probably just going to win out on the siege immediately afterward, especially with this style of composition. The topic of conversation every time it's a healer draft is, all right, war of attrition. Let's go ahead and siege for 10 entire minutes if we have to. We haven't seen that from the Warriors just yet. It seems like they're really trying to push that lead while they've got it, but that lead's been cut significantly already. Leviathans now in potentially one of the best positions they've been in the last 10 or so minutes, actually grouped up on the Fire Giant.
Could be their objective to take. The Warriors have respawned.
Gotta slow him down.
Nika will go in. He'll find a stun up against 3. That's a massive stop, at least for now. Dharmic Pillars is there, but up in the sky is one. Panatom gonna need a little help on landing to take down Dardas, and he will do so. Zapman low, but Zapman will not make it out. Cubo Fred finds the pick. Snipes are good from Vote to put Shinto at critical HP. Cubo Fred able to get himself out of there. Not enough damage from Haddix just yet, but Panatom is also low. Him and Cubo both able to make it out.
Wrong You, Haddix, Panatom, all on death's door. The Oni Warriors cannot finish off this chase, so instead fall back towards the Fire Giant. Should be able to take it for themselves. That goes much better than for the Leviathans than I thought it would. In a moment in that fight, just one more stray auto attack could have taken out 1-2 targets, and that would have been the game for the Oni Warriors. Gotta sing the praises of Nika yet again, though. The wherewithal of deciding, okay, yeah, my team's a little far away, but I have to get in there. I need to slow down this Fire Giant. Connects the 3-man stun and strips the ultimate from Wrong You, which has been so disruptive. A major tool of the Leviathans team fight taken away off rip. Creates the space for the Oni Warriors to take the engagement, but even then, it's thin odds, isn't it? Doesn't it feel like the Oni Warriors should have been able to do more, especially with how the pacing of this game has been over the last 29 minutes now? Feels like that was a situation where they should have been able to finish off Panatom. They should have been knocking on the door of the Titan, but instead, it's a reset back to where we've been for the last 10 minutes. The Oni Warriors get to try once more to siege the base of the Leviathans. If history's any indicator, it's not going to be easy.
Well, Left Phoenix is back down, at the very least. The Oni Warriors only have to deal with one weakened Phoenix and one fully healthy Phoenix, at least over to the right side. Cubo Fred will keep the pressure up and force fire minions into the base from the left, while the rest of the team groups up in towards mid to try and deal with the weakened bird. All the Leviathans minus Shinto are there, but it's a quick rotation for Shinto to rejoin the team. The answer from the Leviathans in every one of these team fights has been get Haddix into the back line, get that cage down. Oni Warriors have got to be wary of Haddix in this fight.
Left side Phoenix on the respawn. Cubo Fred hovering there, but it's the mid Phoenix under threat. Nika's in.
Nika does force Shinto out. Haddix holds on to the cage this time. Wrong You.
Look at left.
Able to find something over towards Nika, but Cubo Fred versus Panatom might not go so well for Cubo because Shinto has joined in, but that leaves everybody else at the mercy of the Warriors in the mid lane. Zapman, the first one down. Snipes in the sky. Two fine, third one, not enough because of the heal from Panatom just a moment ago. Mid Phoenix is gone as well. And with the left one respawned and weakened, will be taken out all the same.
Leviathans cannot allow their attentions to be split like that. If Shinto rotates and gets the kill on a Cubo, sure, maybe a worthwhile trade. You lose the mid Phoenix regardless, but in not picking up the kill, Cubo able to reset. Now it's the Titan under threat.
Only ult up is the one for Vote, but he doesn't even need it because the Titan is gone. The Oni Warriors took him a few tries. We're able to bring this one together and take home game number 1.
A convincing early game, to be sure. The strategy was clear. Shut down Zapman, control the left side of the map, generate pressure around that scepter. We had hypothesized that's what the meta was going to look like coming into this week, but that late game left something to be desired for me from the Oni Warriors. There was too much of a struggle with the amount of lead that they are already established. That first siege that gets crushed was 11,000 gold up and about 6,000 experience. Zapman's still level 15, and it's, what was it, a 3-for-0, 4-for-0 trade favoring the Leviathans, and then they run it back yet again. That was a match that, by the time we got to the last Fire Giant pull, really was a coin toss. That was anyone's game, and considering how much control the Oni Warriors have had, think it should have been.
I mean, I was getting some shades of the old SK base defenses when they're 20k gold down there. Leviathans still have some fight in them, and they're going to need a little bit more if they want a chance to stay alive in the set. Game 1 to the Oni Warriors. We'll take it to a break and come back to get you set up for Game 2.
Water. Earth. Fire. Momo?
Welcome back, everyone. The Warriors with a convincing 1-0 victory, although not an easy fought victory. The Leviathans punching them back every now and then. At least we nailed the Zapman E-set.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We got that part. Maybe not where you wanted to see it, but that's where it ended up going anyway. It was very fun to watch. And of course, if you see them out there in their player cams, they're all looking really fresh. That's because we actually have a new merch sponsor this year. That is going to be Skulls, our merch sponsor, and of course, a place where you can go get the jerseys for your favorite teams. I mean, look at them. Clean, you got the logos, they've got the names, the customizations, all that good stuff that are going out there. I actually really, really like the season's jerseys, and this is going to be the weird shout out. I like the Scarabs the most, just kind of going from like that bright orange, but having the green out there. Of course, switching the dragons over from like their green more to that
the Jazzberry Jam.
The Jazzberry Jam, yeah. There's the color. I was going to say vibrant purple. I'm like, no, that's more the Kings, which is also a very beautiful purple, that royal purple. Either way, you can go to shop.hi-rezstudios.com/ SBL, or you can go to, I believe, shop.smiteproleague.com will also redirect you to the right place. All of those to be able to get some of that merch. And of course, thank you and shout out to Skulls Gear for being our merch partner this year. And for the fantastic products. We got to be in here, me and you actually, while we were filming some stuff with the jerseys and the players, and it looked good, man.
I was handling the lights, so if you guys like the lighting in those pictures, some of that was me.
There was lighting, like there was a day where you were lighting in fog, a day where I was lighting in fog, a day where I did like some fog and you did some lighting, and then I think maybe once where it was vice versa, and then I got pulled out to go do interviews.
Yeah, I had too much power at that point. I had lighting with one hand, fog with the other. The point is, the merch looks good.
Complicated work doing lights, because you got one hand that's trying to turn on one thing that's trying to do a scroll. Obviously, the hardest thing that day, outside of Mike working the camera and literally everything else that was going on. Either way, it was a lot of fun. And again, get your merch while you can, especially if you're going to Worlds. Rep your favorite team. That's where my mind is at, and I'm sure that's where these teams' minds are at as well. The Warriors team, again, we were kind of talking about it. Slump in the middle of the year. Kind of confusing because in Phase 1 they looked great. It turns out they look great again. I mean, maybe it's the double healer, maybe it's just the play on field, Trelly, but this one was a very good-looking game from them.
Well, see, I was extremely shocked to see the East set during picks and bans, and it was for this reason. With how much farm is on the duo lane, with the Interceptor being added back, there's a lot of pressure that needs to be put on the duo lane, and East set is not the safest character, right? Zap did get camped early, which put a massive gold lead in favor for the Warriors. I mean, take a look, 5K at 16 minutes. This was the fight where really we saw Neil just continuously survive at like 15% HP. Mifflin said for 15 seconds or so was one shot. The double healer draft, as well as being able to focus out that duo lane, got the Oni Warriors off to a great start. And then, as you said, there was some fight back. The strong defenses from the Leviathans, but that gold lead never really wavered. It was 10K throughout the whole game, even when the EXP was getting back into normal. It was just too much. That duo lane lead was able to snowball them so much ahead that the Warriors were able to close this one up relatively cleanly towards the end of the game.
And I have to give the special shout out over to Vote strictly because I just love watching raw ult snipes that connect are maybe one of my favorite. It's definitely in my top 3 of abilities to watch, right up there with like the raw snipes, things like that, that are just so visually pleasing and enjoyable to see. Haddix, though, maybe not the debut he would have wanted as a Leviathan. KD-wise, I mean, look, 3-1 and 8, he was doing just fine.
Oh, yeah.
And the team was able to find those kills, but a lot of it, like you said, was on the defense. In fact, KDAs all around just look better for the Leviathans. More kills, slightly less deaths. Zap 4, 5, and 6. Have to throw him under the bus there while we talk about it. But, damage-wise, up there, pretty similar. But when you look at those farm numbers, that's where it is, and that's what you were highlighting. That gold difference between these two teams really just leaning over into the Warriors' favor.
Yeah, if this is the trade-off, because Shinto looked great on the Uller, right? If this is the trade-off, you have to have Shinto on this Hunter. I mean, I think there's a world where you just put Haddix on a Guardian and then say, hey, let's put Zap on Hunter as well. Something with safety. Something that can't get camped.
Throw a Fafnir in there.
If Zap's not getting camped like that and they played as well as they did in the late game from an even state, the Leviathans could have taken that game for sure. So maybe I'm just harping on the mage thing too much. We've seen it work plenty of times. I just know because there's so much farm on that side of the map, because Gold Fury's over there, you got to make sure your ADC's living.
Well, we'll figure it out, right? Whether they think it's a thing that is going to be solidified and absolutely necessary. Maybe they were just branching out, trying something spicy for the first game of the phase. This is definitely somewhere where you've got a little bit of leeway, right? If you're the Warriors, you're one away, you get a nice 2-0 set, you're setting yourself up pretty good. Like all these teams, Right now, you're focusing on being top 6. You're focusing on trying to make sure that you stay in that position so that you can then go into the Phase 3 playoffs, wipe the floor with a couple of teams, get into the top 4, and just go to Worlds. Don't have to worry about too much else. It's worth noting, Zap has played through the qualifiers of Worlds, I think, every year now that they have won. So maybe they don't want to at the end of the day. Maybe they want a more standard Zapman phase where they're 6th, 7th, 8th down here.
But I already said the thing. I already said this is where they turn up.
It's here.
Yeah, I can't delay it until qualifiers. Like, this is
especially
where they have to.
Qualifiers is like the week before Worlds. Right? Normally it's like you've got a week-long event going into like a little break, and then you come back like reinvigorated, refreshed. You don't get that this time around. We'll see though. Well, whether they turn it around or if the Warriors can find a 2-0 here. Bans, Leviathan's first pick, and their bans are Khepri, Daji, and the Bracken. Other side for the Warriors is the Emoja, the Guan Yu, and the Terra. So again, a lot of supports taken off the board, a couple of jungles taken off the board, but the Guan Yu and the Emoja, the healers, removed from the game alongside the Terra. So a lot that the Warriors don't want to have to deal with. And the Leviathans go for someone else that we, or at least I personally maybe expected to fall down the ladder a little bit, has not so far, with the AMC first pick, answered back by a Ymir and the Morrigan. But AMC, along with the ESET, both the quote-unquote first picks for the Leviathans in Game 1 and now in Game 2, it feels like there's a lot of weight on someone who's recently nerfed.
Yeah, no doubt, but it still should be getting some pretty easy mid-lane pressure up against the Morgan. You're going to be out clearing. The Honey is always so annoying whenever you're trying to stealth around as the Morgan, then you accidentally step on the bees. You're revealed for such a long time, and you can't really get those sneaky back-of-the-line assassinates, that sort of thing. The Leviathans did have this luxury of not playing into the Emoja now, so Zap's E-set is not going to be in that much of a terrible spot anymore. You know, the Ymir wall can certainly wall you off. It can certainly make your life miserable up in that lane. But River's Rebuke is just so much easier to catch you out, right? You can just walk up. As long as you're coming from the jungle, you have a pretty easy, just 90-degree right angle you're going to make and say, hey, you can't walk over your tower, you're going to die, and we're going to get some more pressure. It looks like they are thinking about this one real long, because if the E-set doesn't get grabbed here, the Oni Warriors can certainly ban it away, and that might just throw a wrench in their plans.
Yeah, really curious to see, I guess, where the ESET value is, where its presence goes. I mean, Circle of Protection is just a really good ultimate, right?
Oh, yeah.
When it comes down to blanket statements for the game, that one's usually easy. If ESET is meta, Circle of Protection is one of the best secures that you're going to be able to have. Instead, it is someone who Trelly recently got a little bit of a buff sprinkled over towards them. Again, you know, you talk about some flat pin, those discussions, but I think right now we just got to look at the Raijin, and this has to be Shinto, right? Like, there's no way I look at Shinto going like 24-1 in terms of win-loss with this god, and then you give it to Zap. Like, he was nuts.
Gore, I hate to tell you this,
Lead us to
but
glory.
there's no way that this AMC's going duo. That is a Zapman Raijin, and the only reason I'm this confident is
Didn't he
because
play Zapman?
he played it at
Didn't he play
the
it last
Leviathans
week?
Invitational, and he was the only one on his team that was fragging. He must have been like, guys, my Raiju is nuts. Like, my Taiko drums are on point. We don't need E-set. Give me the Raijin. I can go over the wall. I bet you that's exactly what it was. He's like, guys, E-set couldn't go over walls. Raijin can. That'll fix the plan. Let's just do that. Of course, half joking, half serious. I just think AMC not the safest pick in the long lane. In mid, it's so much shorter. You can get to your tower so easily. You get insane pressure, whereas in that duo lane, not going to come as easy. There is a world where the Raijin goes mid because Shinto is one of the best Raijin players in the world. Probably just the best because that win rate is absurd, as you mentioned. But it's not looking too good. I think that's going to be the Raijin. I think Zap's taking the Raijin duo once again.
And you know, I have mixed feelings, if I'm being real with you.
And that's not a good matchup.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a very interesting, maybe interesting. And maybe I cross my fingers. Who knows? Maybe we don't want to see it. Maybe we do. I guess we'll see if we go in a game and it works out really well. Yeah, so looking back on it, just because I wanted this. So, Trelly, Season 8 numbers for this one.
Please do.
28 Leviathan games played, so that's 28 on Shinto because Zap was not picking it up last year. 24 wins. He lost 4 Raijin games for Shinto. So I have to imagine someone's throwing that out there in the booth. Whether or not it ends up happening, someone should be mentioning it at the very least. And if not, they can just listen back to this, and hopefully they'll figure it out. Cupid is the one I want to ask you about, though, because Cupid was getting rise in play towards the end of Phase 2, and I heard a lot of rumblings about him not really falling off either. So seems like he's here, maybe not necessarily to stay, maybe not top priority, but still someone who's going to be picked up often.
Yeah, I think the Cupid ult just gets a ton of value. If you're up against the AMC in that long lane, you're going to be getting beats pretty much every time, as long as you're able to place Fields of Love right in the middle. And against Raijin, you're canceling Thunder Crash, and you're getting a guaranteed Heart Bomb every single time. It's never fun. So no matter what the matchup is, I think vote pretty safe to just grab the Cupid and say, I'm going to make your life miserable. But Leviathans have grabbed either the Naja or the Fenrir support. I imagine it's Fenrir. So wrong you on the Fenrir. That's what I'm going to go with moving forward. Has to find some aggression. Has to get those beads down on to vote and just say, hey, I'm leaving you in a laning matchup that you're probably going to lose from even. So I need to help you out. Because, again, we saw what happened when Zap gets camped. It doesn't look too good. You know, you're going to be losing some Gold Furies. You're going to be losing some of that pressure. If you throw some ganks over to duo lane and make votes stand back at that tower line, maybe the game goes a little bit differently.
It's going to be an interesting matchup because kind of squishier. No matter what, whether it's the Naja or the Fenrir, right, for a support, you're squishier in regards to anything. I mean, Ymir is the highest scaling tank in the game, so you've got real tanky versus an assassin literally playing over there. But you mentioned the Cupid versus Raijin here. Does Cupid have a better matchup into like an AMC as well?
I think Cupid should be dominating both of those matchups. Lane,
and he's probably going against Raijin.
It's just going to be drop ult, get relic, and then Cuba goes, oh, there's a relic down? I'm going to ult you from tower line because I'm Mercury, and if your beads are down, you are getting one shot, 100%.
Yeah, so there's another question kind of to levy towards you here, which is that typically we've seen Mercury be more late game scaled, right? I mean, no matter what, he's still going to, right? Late game, if you've got crit, you've got your punches, like you're going to two-tap people, it's going to feel really good. But we saw something similar with Kali where it was almost always late game oriented, always late game skewed, and yet still people were able to get active level 3, level 5, really kind of help in the early game, even if they weren't maybe dictating everything. Does Mercury have that same kind of potential that we've seen out of Kali this year, or is he still a little too far skewed to the late?
Well, I would say Merc, as long as you're able to get relics down, his ult could be a guaranteed kill if you hit it, because you're never able to ward between the two towers unless your support's really looking out for you, right? So if you can't even see him coming, you get ulted, you're CC chained for so long. So Merc can get active at level 5 for sure.
Well, we're gonna find out. Can the Warriors close this one out in 2, or will the Leviathans bounce back and push us to the first game 3 of the phase here in the very first set of the phase? We'll find out once again with J-Mac and Mifflin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gore and Trelly. Towards the latter half of that game, we did see some pushback from the Leviathans in game number 1. We'll see if they can maybe get some of that fight back a little bit earlier here in game number 2. The double assassin drafted up, and it's something that I'll kind of pitch towards you, Miff, once we jump into the game and discuss a little bit more. We have not seen the Fenrir support in some time. I was kind of wondering, is it going to be the Naja or the Fenrir? But it seems that junglers are really heavily prioritizing that Naja. How do you kind of feel about Fenrir support in this day and age?
Well, I think it's a binary system. Good if mana core spike, bad if not. That's me, personally. Look, Fenrir is always going to do the standard kit stuff. He's always going to have a range stun, always going to have the ability to burn one person's beads, and is always going to have enough threat to nearly force out 5 beads pickups just about every single time. But now with Mana Core Spike, you're going to have a little bit of burst damage with you as well, and it's going to be consistent because Unchained is on such a short cooldown rather. So I'd said it in game 1. I'm expecting to see a lot more aggressive support style picks that can utilize Scepter. Fenrir matches that style to a T.
For now, early aggression is for Vote and Neilmaw, able to clear out that wave a little bit faster than Zap and Wrong you were able to do so. Now, Zapman on the Raijin ADC, I was joking with the Bolts who had just walked in the studio right before, and I was like, yeah, I think that's going to be Raijin over for Zapman. We saw it during the Invitational. He looked pretty clean on it. Well, kind of half-heartedly, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know, thinking he had like 2 triple kills during the Invitational on that one. Again, matched for a little bit more for fun. But considering he's been playing so many mages recently, maybe not as surprising to see him on that pick.
You play the game for a decade, you get sick of your role. I mean, I think that's what happened.
He's never changed.
Yeah, my man wants to be a mage so bad. Look, the Leviathans in the past have decided to play through Shinto almost exclusively. Having him be the root of your pressure, I think, can work out. But it is just a strange decision to lean into that style now, in my mind at least, because of how much pressure is generated in the duo lane. Gold Free spawns super early, Scepter, neutral farm, all on that side of the map as well. You'd think you want someone that can get high pressure early and have the potential to box out. Cupid fits that. Ymir does that very, very well. Fenrir does that. Raijin, though, I'm not thinking he's a brawler, at least not until around level 9 or 10.
I mean, if we rewind the clock back to maybe a little before this time, 1 year ago, I mean, Shinto was popping off on this guy. I mean, Raijin was literally a win condition for him at that point. As mentioned by Gore, 24 out of 28 games played last year were on Shinto. So seeing how Zapman's taking this one, maybe at least the performance that it's had across the board can help out, but I think you're right to mention that dual lane maybe not have been the call for this god.
Difference was when Shinto was playing it, Shinto has red buff from minute 1 to minute done, and that was flat pen meta. And flat pen's seen a slight buff recently, a little bit easier to move in towards that style of build. But you're going Warlock Staff in first slot, a very expensive item. That used to be Conduit gem meta as well, so Raijin's damage output in the early wasn't so bad. We're looking at a Sands of Time start for Zapman on the other end. I'm not going to keep saying it's bad. It's going to work out. It's going to be just fine. In the latest portions of this game, and the Leviathans have proven time and time again that they're capable of forcing any given match to go to the absolute brink, to go to the absolute limits, 30, 40 minutes if they have to. It's going to be a standard composition. The only difference is your ADC is going to have the Shinto name floating above their head instead of Zapman. As far as the composition is concerned, it's about as Leviathans get. But until then, I'm thinking the Oni Warriors are going to try and reprise the exact same pacing and map style as we saw in Game 1. Jam pressure in duo, control all those neutrals, and try and invade those purples consistently on cooldown.
It was around this time in Game 1 where we saw that first blood go to the Warriors. They had hit that level 5, used the rivers on Zapman previously. But now not quite hitting that level 5 stride just yet. So it'll take them a little bit before they can maybe try and find that first pick. Or at least find that first relic. And a very important relic for Zapman to have, because he is very susceptible to that Fields of Love, something that Trelly was highlighting it very intensely on the desk.
Fields of Love, Sonic Boom, both very good tools to deal with Zapman, at least until he gets those Taiko drums available. Yeah, you're quick enough on Raijin, you can react to Sonic Boom pretty easily. Fields of Love, though, likely will be forcing out those beads consistently. I imagine we see the Oni Warriors the second they take over to level 5, try and take off at least one of those relics. Wrong, you should be able to trade Ragnarok every time, though.
Level 4 there. Does get away from the Fields of Love, so Zapman is fine. But not a lot of turnaround damage to fire back over at Neil and Vote. But Zapman holding on to the relic, very important for him. Another 90 seconds before Vote will have that ult to try and put pressure on him again.
I wonder if had Vote gone for a different starter, if there would have been enough pressure to force off those beads. Maybe not enough value to consider changing up your build, but maybe food for thought as well. Zapman holds on to the beads, holds on to his life, continues to farm up, and with the Oni Warriors not taking off the relic or a vast majority of the HP bar, shouldn't be able to move in towards this purple buff, at least not easily. We'll do so anyway.
Purple buff invade. Freeze. Not going to find anybody. Purple buff does get secured for the Leviathans. That Hand of the Gods held on to by Wrong Yu. Make sure they can secure the buff for Zapman, so not going to lose out on that experience. But pressure, the name of the game for the Oni Warriors. Have not let off the gas pedal from that very first fight in the duo lane, continuing to put that fight over towards this purple buff and try and keep Zapman down.
Yeah, a bit of an inverse is what we saw from Game 1, where it was gold solidly in the lead for the Oni Warriors. The experience largely equalized. This time, experience slightly further ahead, but at this portion of the game, 5 minutes in, we're not really going to see the trickle-down effect for a little while. Once we get to second item, maybe, we could see the Oni Warriors try and leverage some aggression over towards that Gold Fury. You don't have, I suppose, the same level of burn as we did in the previous match. Cubo Fred going towards Golden Blade in that first slot instead of Jotuns. Dardes on the Morrigan doesn't have the most phenomenal transformation targets as far as Gold Fury is concerned. Could have turned into just E-set in the previous match had he wanted to. But Ymir's Circle of Ice, or Shards of Ice rather, might be enough confirmation that the Oni Warriors are confident in their ability to pull out that objective. Panatom has shown a propensity now in 2 games to not really favor the left-hand side of the map. Haven't seen a whole lot of presence from him there either. So the Oni Warriors with pressure in the duo lane, not as much, but still certainly enough. I would like to see them move over towards that objective.
3 people in the right jungle to maybe try and put Nika down if possible on this King Arthur. Start off with Sovereignty Bluestone. So a decent bit of tankiness and some extra help with the clear. But he's not going to get any help for his blue buff. That one will be stolen away by the Leviathans. Zatman over the wall. How far can he run? Not very far. Frozen in place, and a sonic boom will put him down. Cuvo Fred strikes first blood for the Oni Warriors.
You think Zat maybe regrets ulting Wave a little bit earlier? I'm not sure it would have saved him, but it might have bought him at least a little bit more time. Does hold on to those beads, though, so better luck next time, I suppose. Cuvo Fred gonna have to work hard for the secondary rotation through. Zatman just caught out in the jungle, and the Warriors takes them a little bit longer. It was the 3-minute mark where we saw this trend start to develop in game 1. Now it's 7 minutes in. Take away the purple buff, juice their shrine, maybe could move in towards this red as well. I'm thinking we're gonna see a whole lot of that pressure continued on the left side of the map.
Rongi's trying to at least help out in mid. Problem is that Cuvo and Dardas are there to clear out that wave, no problem. Shinto holding up as far as the experience is going. Last game, he'd fallen a little bit behind early in the farm department, at least compared to Dardes. Then it took him about 15 or so minutes to catch up and take a little bit of a lead. So seeing that Shinto, even despite all of this aggression being thrown in this left side jungle, he's still able to maintain his farm this early on.
Oh, look at that shell pickup from Wrongu. That came very early this game. Phantom Shell already finished up, so Neilma gonna struggle a bit more to find those priority targets. I think you're essentially forced into that decision as Wrongu, considering Shinto's playing AMC and Panatom's on Naja. Would make it pretty easy for Neil to line up some of those walls in the jungle. So we'll slow down Wrongu's build, and in being forced to move towards Gauntlet of Thebes so early, it's already a relatively slow build. Gonna be a little while until he's tanky, per se. Could make the Leviathans struggle around their initiation for the next couple of minutes. Not that we're seeing a whole lot of Leviathans starting the aggression. It's been more so reactive play from them, and the Oni Warriors taking the onus of, hey, I want to fight, and this is where it's going to happen, and this is what we're fighting over. The Leviathans just responding, hey, please don't do that. Maybe we'll get there and slow you down.
Well, we saw a gathering on the right side of the map about half a minute ago by the Leviathans. Wanted to try and invade that blue buff again, but we're a little too early on it, despite the fact they even had a timer. So instead, we saw them rotate over towards mid, maybe try and catch Dardes out if possible. Dardes wisely saw them on a ward, threw out an Abilia wave, and just left them alone for the time being. So with only 1 kill so far at the 9-minute mark, maybe another one on the horizon. If Wrongu gets caught out, Sonic Boom charged up. Will Cuvo Fred find the line? It goes wide to catch up with the rest of the team. A Fields of Love already expended, and Zatman now in the middle of 2. Lose the beads to the dash by Cuvo, but Vote is losing his health to Panatom and the Raijin. Vote able to get out just for now, but Panatom will not. The Heart Bomb seals the kill.
I promise you it wasn't intentional, but it was sick to see. Dardes may lose his life in exchange. It actually used the clone to take away the ring toss, and now it's the Leviathans stepping forward, pull in on the Cuvo Fred, and an easy pickup. The Oni Warriors overcommit on that chase. Cuvo Fred in particular, that Sonic Boom to try and split the map there, looked like he was trying to decide between whether or not he wanted to look for Zatman or Wrongu. Connects with neither, goes deep into that purple buff, and from there, Vote tries to catch out at least one with the Fields of Love. Doesn't connect there either. But I just got to highlight it again, man. Dardes saves Vote's life by spawning a clone to eat the ring bounce that would have killed him. That's just sick play. No way he's thinking about it, right? Like, no way Dardes is like an Omega brain like that, but just a fun little micro interaction.
And there's a reason that the Oni Warriors love this pick for Dardes, maybe even if it's not necessarily, you know, the Giga Brain plays like that, but this has been a winning god for him in phase number 2 and even back towards phase 1 between Dodgy and the Morrigan. If you got one, or especially if you got both of those gods up for the Oni Warriors, I'm not going to say you might as well call it game at that point, but it kind of felt like it the way that these two players shine on those gods.
Yeah, Dardes no stranger to playing this pick. Will have to slow himself down a bit, though. We've hit some pretty major inflection points in the power spikes of Shinto's build. Transcendence fully stacked, Crusher finished up as well. Whereas Dardes gonna need a couple more items before he becomes a threat in the Morrigan stance, before he can, you know, just go in with the Dark aspects in one shot. Zatman, speaking of, might find himself in that exact situation. Pretty far behind, 2 levels already. It's gonna get a lot harder before it gets easier for the old Z-Man.
Pyromancer, the immediate response for Leviathans. They'll grab that and shore up that gold lead now in their favor. The first time we actually see it spike up. Not by much. 300 gold at 11.5 minutes isn't really anything special. 1,000 XP as well. So Leviathans at least holding out for a little while. But ultimate gone from Zap. Bede's still down for about 30 seconds. He's not going to want to join on any of these fights. Wrong U with that Phantom Shell has at least some safety with this team to try and get them away from Neil Ma. I definitely got to keep my eyes on Vote throughout these fights. That ultimate seems like it's going to be pivotal for turning these fights in their favor. And Panatom will already go up and take Cubo Fred to the sky. Missed one of the crits, but he doesn't need it because Shinto's got a lot of damage on the back line of the fight. Neil Ma stunned by Wrong U, stunned by Panatom. Does get the wall up to separate himself. And Wrong U does not have nearly enough damage to get the kill. A clean pick for the Leviathans.
Yeah, between that meditation and Mail Renewal, Neil Ma should be able to survive that exchange. But it's the Leviathans now getting proactive on the map, choosing where these exchanges happen. I did like the attempt from Neil Ma there. Waits out the sash from Panatom and tries to spawn that wall between Panatom and his target. Unfortunately for Cubo Fred, a little off the mark. I'm not certain if Cubo Fred's beats were available at time of, but if they were, major drop from the Mercury, costing him his life. Will slow him down a bit. You don't want to be slowed down now that you got that rage finished up. You need to get those stacks online as quickly as possible. Whereas Panatom doesn't really need to worry about too much. He's going to scale very well into the late game regardless. Has some of those buffs we were talking about a little bit earlier on the waiting room. Naja deceptively tanky with that ultimate. I'm thinking the Leviathans much happier with the pacing this time around.
Especially the fact that they're not sitting in any kind of deficit. As shown earlier and still reflected now, slight lead for Leviathans in golden XP and very slight as far as XP is concerned. There hasn't really been much pressure around these neutral objectives yet. We saw a fight over towards the left side earlier on, where the Oni Warriors trying to put Zapman down, and we saw Leviathans respond with the Pyromancer pickup. Now around this Gold Fury, is there any of these two teams that would probably rather be able to get that first Gold Fury pull, or at least has a better chance at getting that pull? We'll have to see if they can get it after a pick on a Zapman maybe, or a turnaround by the Leviathans. Cubo Fred gets his beads stripped away by Wrong U. And ult from Bo just keeps Zapman out.
Yeah, smart play. Wrong U likely would have liked to continue that onslaught onto Cubo Fred, but Vote realizing, yeah, no way Wrong U does that in a 1v2. How do I make this a 1v2? I'll keep Zapman out. Does exactly that. Rotation in from Neil Ma. Might be able to force out a bit more here.
Ragnarok is down. Leap was used, and now Zapman's got an ult to try and help out his support. He doesn't find a lot of damage with that ultimate, but now with Haddix on the way, a leap into the back line. Vote able to dash away from the ultimate from the Cucullin, and Neil Ma is just biding his time, keeping 3 away while it's a 3v2 in the jungle on the top side. Panatom low, already used the ult to get out. Neil Ma used his ult, but Shinto gets that kill. Fields of Love will lock in Shinto, and the B is gone with the final strike from Haddix.
Cubo Fred 1v1 up against Haddix on the right-hand side, while the 3-man core of the Leviathans start to retreat through the jungle. A fight goes south. Shinto in trade for Neil Ma. Can the Oni Warriors do more on the map? I'm thinking they have the DPS for Gold Fury. You've already got your crit on Mercury. It should go pretty quick. And nobody around for the Leviathans. So an even trade becomes uneven at the tail end. Stuff after the stuff going to the Oni Warriors.
Objective from the Warriors, and that gold lead that was to Leviathans about 700 earlier on has now spiked down to 700 for the Oni Warriors, a little bit of XP along with it. Vote and Cubo still playing aggressive up in enemy territory even after grabbing that objective. Wrong U doesn't want the fight right now. He wants to grab some of those offerings, get that trebuchet started back up for Leviathans. Good fight from the Warriors, back and forth more than anything there, and kind of as you were pointing out towards me during that fight, that separation that at least Neil Ma was creating for his team to fight on that right side jungle.
Yeah, I was surprised because with how far up the Leviathans were in the actual lane, I would have expected the Oni Warriors to be trying their absolute best to just ignore the exchange in the jungle and try and move in towards that lane battle. Help out Vote, help out Neil, make sure everything goes well there. But instead, it was a dedicated effort from the Oni Warriors to keep the fight rolling in that jungle spot. They do force Shinto into a poor position and find a priority pick, so clearly works out incredibly well for them and are able to leverage it immediately into a Gold Fury. Desynced neutral objectives means that even though the Leviathans do get first rotation of the Pyromancer, should likely be the Oni Warriors with advantage moving towards it on this respawn.
There's the Manticore spike you were calling for earlier
that
for
item's
Wrong
so good,
U.
man.
And it's not just one, not just two, but 3 Manticore spikes picked up throughout this game so far. one on each of the solo laners, and then, as mentioned, the one for Rongyu. Now, a lot of extra damage going to be coming out of these tanks.
Yeah, I almost consider Mana Core Spike to just be like a better hi-rez. It's just, hey, I've got big burst.
Well, Vote's got a lot of burst to him. That was a lot of ultimates used to kill Vote, and it's a Pyromancer in response for the Oni Warriors. Trade 1 for an objective. Typically, you take that trade any day of the week.
Typically, I'm not certain you needed to take the trade there. I'm thinking Vote could have just could have just taken the scenic route over towards his team, or maybe walked safely or gone back to base. Like, he wasn't really necessary for the objective DPS there, but gets caught out nonetheless. But at the end of the day, it's a trade you're willing to take. As you said, 1 for objective, so long as you're not losing something else in exchange, is just fine.
Red buff does get stolen. Wall holds Rongyu Panatom away. Sonic Boom finds 2 in a Fields of Love. Knocks out Panatom. Kubo gets the hit, and another wall from Neilma. Catches Shinto out this time. Beads are gone from the B. Thrown against the wall and beaten to the ground. Dardes finds the second kill.
And you know what? I think Nika's got the pincer here. Rongyu should be able to path towards that tier 1 tower, but maybe Nika can cut him off. Plenty of time on these respawn timers for the Leviathans. 30 seconds on Shinto, 20 on Panatom. Takes about 10 seconds to walk from your base to the Fire Giant. The Oni Warriors, with a phenomenal composition for shredding objectives, have got a significant advantage here.
Nika and Kuvo fully out Rongyu. Quarter HP on the Fenrir means no chance to get into the objective. It's all going to come down to Haddix, and he can't even find a line in. The Oni Warriors will grab an 18-minute Fire Giant and now really push that lead that they had just recently established. Fire Giant goes their way, and all 5 get a benefit from the buff.
And it's all off the back of 2 phenomenal wall placements from Neilma. Just locks down everybody. 2-man freeze, 2-man Sonic Boom from Kuvo Fred as well. The Leviathans just a little too far up for my liking in that exchange. Nobody really nearby to follow up. Zapman wasn't really at fighting strength there either, so the Oni Warriors not only have the positioning advantage, but the numbers advantage, the gold advantage, and the experience in that small engagement. Now, with plenty of gold and experience to be collected on the map as well, you got to expect these charts to swing even further in favor of the Chaos team. Won't necessarily see a Phoenix here. I don't believe we will, but 1 or 2 tier 2 towers fall back to the Oni Fury once that respawns, and the Warriors are going to be in a very, very good position. Significant power spikes hit as well. Dardes now with Fire Giant and Polynomicon plus this Spear of Desolation means that he is a threat in just standard Morrigan stance, something that Shinto really needs to concern himself with. Won't really be allowed to walk on his own in the jungle. Does at least have Shell to keep himself slightly alive, but doesn't really do a whole lot for you if you die while you're stunned. And for the next 45 seconds, there's not really much Shinto can do about that.
I just realized something new. Fully upgraded meditation on Neilma, the cooldown one. I was sitting there thinking, man, that wall came up really fast from Neilma between Red and that cloak. I think he popped that meditation during that fight. Maybe we'll get to see more use of it now, as the freeze on a Haddix will lock down the solo laner. Fields of Love and a Heart Bomb spreads over to get some damage, but it's a shell. Not available just yet, or actually the one used by Zapman during that to keep his team alive. Tier 1 tower goes down, Tier 2 still under fire.
Oni Warriors have got healing not only from Fire Giant, but from Vote as well. So if they can slow down this engagement, similar to Game 1, it should start to favor them. Kuvo Fred splits off, wants the Tier 1 in mid, will take the attention of Panatom over towards this center of the map. 4-on-4 engagement, and one of these teams got Poly. So as long as those Polys are hitting the tower, it will slowly go in favor of the Warriors.
Leviathans grouped as 4. It's 4 versus 4 under the Tier 2. Both the junglers pushed over towards mid. Decent clear, at least out of Shinto and Zap to hold them back. Kuvo Fred missing the dash onto Panatom. Engaged by Nika. Haddix in as well.
Oh my goodness.
And look at the damage over towards the solo laner. He gets the rage transformation off, but he's not going to be able to get much value from it. Already forced back to base, but teleport is back up on respawn.
So he should be able to get here pretty quickly. Does have some wards in the jungle that he's going to move himself towards, but good eyes, Doug. Trebuchet making this a war on 3 fronts, so long as Kuvo Fred does make the decision to rotate back towards mid. But why would you? The Oni Warriors have done so much work for this Tier 2 on left, and they've already burned through a good amount of resources from the Leviathans. All ultimates still available, though. Won't be easy.
Taking up the tower is Neilma, not taking a lot of damage. is that tower. The Oni Warriors are biding so much time on this side. And as you highlighted, because of that trebuchet on the right, slowly whittling away at that tier 2 tower, the Leviathans have eventually got to make an answer of some kind. Do they go in for the push? Do they hold back and wait? It's the engage from Fred, but it only finds Haddix. That opens up the door for the tier 2 tower to go down. But that's pretty much the entirety of the Fire Giant buff, at least out of the Oni Warriors, able to only get those 2 towers on the left side.
Well, hold on. Trebuchet's got a little bit more left in the never mind.
No,
All right, okay, yeah. Right side tier 2's alive, if only barely. A stiff breeze knocks that one over. Oni Warriors will take the Oni Fury for themselves, so a little bit more on the tail end. Fred has the potential to solo the Pyromancer if left alone. Big if with Wrong You and Haddix so close by. So good, just map awareness from the Warriors jungle to not pull that one out. And the Warriors, sure, weren't able to get too much on the map, but they've done a lot of work. They've done the groundwork for the next part of the siege. If they can get Fire Giant once more, that right side tier 2 might as well not be a defense point for the Leviathans. And tier 1 and mid, one of the easier to take out.
Pyromancer will go to the Leviathans once again. Shore up a little bit of that gold disparity that's now approaching 6,000 for the Oni Warriors. Only 23 minutes in, experience about 4K as well. We're starting to approach that level 20 for a few of players out there, at least just for one right now. Nika with a 2-level lead over in the solo lane. And it feels like that just kind of came out of nowhere because, I mean, Nika's only 1-0. Haddix on the other side, 1-0-3. Seems just that neutral farm coming in favor for the Warriors.
Yeah, Haddix has also made a couple more rotations than what we've seen from Nika. Tries to alleviate some of that pressure in the dual lane, I believe around that 11 to 12 minute mark. So Nika doesn't have to do that because his dual lane's the one that had pressure because they've got a Hunter over there, which means he was allowed to stick around in lane and just continually farm up. Plus all those objectives, you know, they add up.
As Fire Giant has crashed in. Wrong Use health bar is crashing. No chance for the Wolf to get out. Vote finds the first pick in the fight. Shinto loses beads to Nika. Zapman will flail out a couple of drum shots to at least hold the Oni Warriors from pushing further in. Look at the half health bars on most of the Warriors just from that initial engagement.
Great ultimate from Zapman there. Actually keeps Shinto alive. Neilma was closing in with that wall, but the fear does keep him out. Another missed wall from the Oni Warriors support means that the Leviathans can start to move themselves inch by inch forward to check on that Fire Giant pit. They've got decent vision. Should be able to spot it out if it's been pulled, and it has now. Haddix will convey that to his team, but can he stop it on his own? No.
Sonic Boom stuns him out. A knockup by Nika. Another Fields of Love will catch another one out. Haddix falls. Shinto goes down. Panatom used the beads to get away from the stun, and that might have been the only thing that saves his life in that instance, as the Oni Warriors bided their time once again and were able to pick up pay dirt with that one, picking up 2 kills.
These walls have just been menacing, crushing. The Leviathans haven't found the opportunity to walk for it. The first person to step up just gets shredded. Again, it's the nature of Vote's build. Goes towards these tank shredder options. Kin size Executioner says, hey, Neil, whoever you can lock down, I don't care if it's Shinto, I don't care if it's Wrong You, they're going to die. And so far, it's just been true. The burst potential from Dardes as well. Fred just utilizing the majority of his kit to extend the CC, hold him and lock him down so that Vote or Nika can deal out that DPS. The Oni Warriors came with a clear plan with this composition, and it is hard to deal with.
Executed well on it so far. All towers down. Only Phoenixes left standing for the Leviathans. With Neilma at half and a jump in by Wrong You. Panatom's HP bar not looking super healthy. Nika gets pulled back, but a Fields of Love will lock down Haddix yet again. Not enough damage to kill the Kukulkan this time around. And Nika, Neilma, all the Oni Warriors will have their lives spared for a moment later.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors, I think, were probably surprised by their own damage there. I saw Nika get pulled and I thought to myself, okay, that's probably this Fire Giant siege. Surely Nika's just dead. Defense shred from Shinto, lockdown from Panatom/Haddix. Not the case. Nika lands in there, and it's actually Haddix who's burned down incredibly fast. Not quite enough follow-up from the Oni Warriors to actually secure that kill. Had they done so, that Phoenix would have fallen. Instead, reset back to neutral, spend up that gold you got off the one team fight, as well as the Fire Giant and the Tier 2 tower, and try yet again. Relic Roundup, couple of beads not going to be available on this next siege attempt. I'm keeping my eyes specifically on Panatom and on Zapman. About 40 seconds left on the Z-Mans, which which means the freezes, which have been connecting consistently, will continue to do so. If Cubo Fred spots him from a distance, doesn't matter how far you are, Sonic Boom is up, and it is. Should be able to win out on those 1v1s as well. I'm even surprised to see this, man. Shinto, this is dangerous. Opposite side of the map, I suppose, just hedging his bet, saying, no way the Warriors are here, and he's right, luckily for him.
The rest of the team can now work their way towards mid. Phoenix took about half of its health during that last little skirmish between the Warriors and Leviathans under that objective. The Warriors will make a 3-2 split, at least for now. Cubo Fred will make it 4
Still
to the
going.
left-hand side. Shinto all by himself will get some value out of this push.
It's on a timer.
Pull up a little bit of that gold lead, at least that was pushing these teams away, but now without Shinto there, without that extra damage, they're missing out on some for this left side Phoenix.
Left side Phoenix is going quick, not enough DPS to slow him down. Wrong Q goes for the pull, does not connect. Neilma immutes it with his own ultimate, and now the Leviathans engage, takes a major hit.
Nika does lose out on his bubble from Panatom, so that's at least one defense pulled away from this King Arthur. But with the wall of Fields of Love, that's going to get the beads out of Zapman. In the backline goes Panatom and Haddix. And Panatom does manage to take up Neilma, not doing a whole lot of damage. It'll be a 1-for-1 trade on landing. Haddix able to make it out just barely. Dardes ages just to live through the damage of Zapman. And the Oni Warriors, who had a great push in, are now being pushed back on the left, while Cubo Fred takes the middle bird.
Cubo Fred keeps his eyes on the prize, breaks the base of the Leviathans. A phenomenal trade for the Oni Warriors there. I'm sure Panatom had plenty of time to think about his mistakes as he takes Neilma up into the air and recognizes that he's only got about 50 HP to play with. Neilma does die on landing, but a trade I think the Oni Warriors are willing to take. Had we seen a little bit more, I suppose, respectful play from Dardes, maybe that siege would have continued a bit on the left.
Nika loses about 50% of his health after the jump in from Wrong Yu. So these Fenrir stuns putting in a lot of value for the Leviathans. We saw in the earlier push, Wrong Yu managed to catch 2 with the initial stun, then got the ultimate away from Neilma immediately after. So if Wrong Yu can keep finding these multi-man engagements, could be good. The problem is we just haven't seen the follow-up beyond those engagements.
I mean, you know how big Unchained is? It's not very big. It's pretty difficult to find the multi-man stuns. I'm not thinking you can rely on Wrong Yu in that situation. Of course, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him, but not exactly tanky just yet. We saw how quickly he was shredded out. I'm thinking it's got to be Haddix that starts up these fights. You want him going in with that ultimate, at least burning out some of these beads, creating some space so that Wrong Yu can actually pick somebody up with Ragnarok. Then the Leviathans can start to utilize some of this single target DPS between Shinto and Zapman. Should be able to shred through just about anybody on the Oni Warriors. Haven't seen too many opportunities for that to arise, though, because even now, off the tail end of a fight that didn't go exactly great for the Oni Warriors, it's only, what, 2 sets of beads burned? You still got him on Cubo Fred. Dardes has got some transformation targets that should be able to at least shore up the weakness of lacking the CC immunity himself. Got to be worried about Vote, though. Sure, he's got the Aegis, but can't really Aegis in the mouth of a Fenrir.
Unfortunately for the Leviathans, this gold gap has just gotten ever worse for them. Now 14,000 between the two teams. You can heavily see that reflected in items. Everybody nearly a full level behind or more on the Leviathans, but still able to hold these base defense. That's been their saving grace from game number 1 and pushing now into game 2, have been their defenses around these objectives, around these Phoenixes specifically. But with the Oni Warriors going for an enhanced Fire Giant, our first one we get to see this set, it's going to make those sieges a little bit easier for the Warriors.
It should, so the Leviathans probably won't give it up without a fight. Enhanced Fire Giant in this game state might just be a GG, so we could see the Leviathans go for a bit of a Hail Mary here, try and coin toss the objective itself. But it's slow playing. The Fire Giant, nothing but slow.
Wrong Yu, not able to get in time. Enhanced Fire Giant to the Oni Warriors. And how much more can they find? Nika wants to find a stun onto anybody that he can. Stomps in, finds the knockup on Wrong Yu, gets the Sonic Boom, and ultimate in response, but it's not enough to save the life of the support. Dardes versus Panatom, and that one goes to Dardes. Haddix thrown back on the opposite side, and now Zapman tries to make the play for his team, but he cannot find the defense, the damage up against Vote. who's able to find one there. Nika goes in aggressively
No way.
against Zapman. One more hit.
No.
The Fire Minions find the kill on the Hunter. It's a deicide on the Leviathans. All 5 of the Warriors stand tall, and they will push in to take game number 2.
The Leviathans were in position. They say, okay, we need to defend this Fire Giant. If they get it, we lose. They don't get into the Fire Giant pit. Instead, it's an enhanced Fire Giant that goes over to the Warriors for free, at literally no cost. Don't even have to ult it. There was no threat of steal. And then it's like, oh, the Leviathans are still here, guys. Let's make short work of these guys. And that's exactly what happened. I would have liked to see the Leviathans in that situation commit to a decision. Either get into the Fire Giant pit or get under your Phoenix. Neither happened, and the Levi's crumbled.
Nika playing with a lot of fire during that fight. I mean, he dashes in aggressively against multiple people to start that fight out, fighting the knockup on a wrong U, then dashes in again aggressively against Zapman when he was like, what, 40 HP, if even that at that
Crazy.
point. Still managed to get out alive, and then the Fire Minions are actually what got the final hit onto Zapman during that fight. A little bit of extra luck from Nika. And the Atlantis Leviathans fall down in game number 2. Oni Warriors find themselves the 2-0 victory for our first match of phase number 3. Oni Warriors decide they want to start that one off strong.
Yeah, surprising start as well. I'm sure not one that the Leviathans wanted to see considering some of the roster swaps they just had as well. Not a great start for Haddix's rest of the year with the Leviathans, but still, I'm not going to leave it at his feet. I think this one came down to the Oni Warriors just having a little bit firmer grasp of what the meta is going to look like going into this phase.
An early phase win for the Oni Warriors is going to look good for them. That's it for us on the cast. We'll throw it over to the desk to close out the set.
Thank you so much, J-Mac and Mifflin, and congratulations to the Warriors. Finding first blood here in phase 3. 2 games, and pretty swift at that. That one maybe lasts a little longer, but a lot of control coming down from the Warriors. Big gold leads were the discussion in game number 1. Big gold leads feels like the discussion here in game number 2. Kill-wise, towards the end, like Dardes had a really good-looking KDA. A couple of the players there, Jelly, did as well. But really, at the end of the day, 14,000 gold seems pretty nice to be lining your pockets when you're going into a fight.
Yeah, I would say so. Mifflin highlighted Neil Ma's walls. I have to do the same. I mean, just on point with the Ymir. There's just being able to cut off so many members of the Leviathan saying, hey, you can't get out or you can't get in. Wherever these walls are up, set up a ton. Kuvo obviously was looking for the setup as well with these ultimates, getting the early lead. And we were just talking about they can snowball so hard. Just 1 or 2 relics early on really opens up. And, you know, Vote and Dardes, the double Cupid throughout the game, were just doing so much with these Fields of Loves, getting out with 1 HP, sustaining the team. And the Cripple Field, I think, just so difficult to deal with. So many immobile characters on the sides of the Leviathans, if, of course, their movement abilities are just shut down by Fields of Love.
Yeah, I think that this was one that just, I mean, you had highlighted it going into it, how impactful the Cupid was going to be. We got to see a lot of that. We got to see some really good transformations out of Dardes as well. 2 Morrigan games back-to-back. It feels like the Warriors, I mean, both of their drafts, right? They came out with a plan, and they executed that plan incredibly well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you do this balancing act of, you know, is Zapman on these mages, is that the way to go? Are any other teams going to be trying this? Is it something the Leviathans figured they'd give a shot? Maybe it's been working in scrims, just isn't working here. Will we see it again, whether it's this weekend, next week, whenever? You know, leaves me with some questions. I don't know that we're going to get any answers anytime soon. We'll have to figure that one out. I guess through the Leviathans gameplay in this week as its own. But 3-0-3, Nika had some big plays. 4-2-7, 4-1-7 there for Kuvo and Dardes. And, of course, 20,000, almost 21K put up there by Vote to match 2 of those other players on his team. It feels like it was just a really good game to be a Warrior, really good set to be a Warriors fan.
Yeah, I would say just... you know, it boils down to a bit of a draft, and I think, again, I got to give credit to Mifflin, which, you know, I hate to do, but sometimes you got to.
We all do.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors seem to have a firmer grasp on the meta at the moment. Just the draft, for me, the Oni Warriors just was so much easier to execute on. Fields of Love is just so easy. You just drop it wrong. You playing Fenrir really wants to use these movement abilities to facilitate his team. Unchained into Ragnarok, pick someone up, take him back, but was constantly getting crippled. You just can't really succeed. Like 3k damage by the end of that. Of course, you're going Lonos. You're not playing Fenrir for the damage. You're trying to fit up the setup, but wasn't able to find too much.
Unfortunately for the Leviathans, that then means they lose. The Warriors now get themselves a nice 2-0 to kick things off here, and a great look for the beginning of the phase. We actually have J-Mac standing by to see how they feel after a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm in here with the booth with the Oni Warriors. Take the first set of phase number 3, a 2-0 victory over to them. So it calls for celebration for the Oni Warriors to kind of start their season out strong. But that's not the only thing that's being celebrated. I've been told by Neil Ma that it's a very special birthday, not necessarily in the house, but at least in the family for Neil Ma. Tell me about this real quick, man.
It's true. It's my beautiful mama's birthday, and she's just made me into the man I am today. And we'd all just like to sing for her.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Bring it in.
take it away.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lori. Happy birthday to you. Thanks so much, and back to the desk, guys.
Writable? Or I can't even remember if they free domained that. I don't know what's going to happen here.
Are we in trouble?
Happy birthday, Mama Neil.
Mama Ma.
Mama Ma. That's so much better. Mama Ma.
Mama Ma, yeah. Happy birthday, Mama Ma.
I'm done because that's exactly what it is on Twitter, too, isn't it? Like, that's literally what it is. Either way, I guess happy birthday out there for them. And I'm sure an exciting win, a nice present.
And a birthday gift.
Yeah, a birthday gift, right? A little present there from Neil. Either way, feels pretty exciting for them. And Trelly, again, that kicks us off with something interesting. It is always fun to watch this because I think if you go back, I mean, even the beginning of this year, you consider this one an upset. I think considering where we've seen these teams and what we've seen them capable of doing, probably not necessarily easy to throw that term onto it, just because the Warriors have looked really good, kind of been sleeper, I would argue, most of the year, even though they went on a 6-loss streak. Just ignore that part. And the Leviathans, still some work to do, and that's something I think that, you know, looking forward is maybe what's on my mind, because the Warriors seem to have a grasp on what they want to do. I believe, I can't remember if we see them play a little bit later this week or not. Leviathans, they're going to have some work to do. I mean, obviously new player, so there's going to be something that you can have there, but he looked pretty solid. No, that is the only Warriors set. Wow, you get to come in, give Neil's mom a present, and then just leave.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll see you next week. Business as usual.
Well, you're going to go relaxing. Leviathans get a second chance later this week up against the Titans to see how things are going to be going there. And we get a good look at the Bolts playing with Baskin here in just a few minutes. Baskin, I believe, in studio with them as well. So a lot of fun. I mean, look, you want to talk about Baskin's mechanics, you want to talk about Baskin as a player, and everybody always talks about him at the highest levels. Add that and throw it on the land Trelly, and it feels like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good equation.
We got to see the new soul lane of the Leviathans, and I think Haddix played well, but I am really excited for this matchup.
Haddix did look really good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, I drafted Baskin on the fantasy team. Maybe a little bit of nostalgia for me, but also I think I know I'm confident in what he's going to be able to do here in the solo lane, especially for my squad.
Well, I'm excited to see that again. Congratulations to the Warriors for a 2-0. But of course, if you're excited as I am for the Titans and the Bolts, then you're going to want to stick around. We're going to kick it to a quick break, and when we get back, we'll have set number 2.